you could afford to lose maybe one vote early in the year until these specials happen. How hard is that going to be for Mike Johnson?
It's going to be really difficult. And in fact, he can't even afford to lose a single vote if all three of those seats are vacant at the same time, because that would then give Republicans a 217 to 250 majority in the House. And if one Republican defects and votes with Democrats, that would result in a tie. And so in reality, the speaker can afford no defections, and that's going to make it really difficult for the next couple of months. Now, there are going to be Florida special elections to fill two potentially vacant seats. One is already vacant. That's Matt Gaetz' seat. And then Mike Walz's seat is expected to be vacant as he'll be joining the Trump administration. Those seats will be filled later after special elections in April. And then a New York seat held by Elise Stefanik, who was also appointed to the Trump administration. That seat will be filled at some point later in the spring. We don't actually know the date yet because Stefanik has yet to resign and probably won't resign until she's actually confirmed by the Senate for her position. But it's going to be very difficult for Johnson to navigate with such a historically thin majority.
Well, in the meantime, as you well know, Erin, there's a conversation and a question over sequencing right now and exactly what this Congress should be prioritizing when it begins next year. It's apparently going to be decided at a football game tomorrow. I'm not sure your thoughts on that. And I don't think there are any Democrats invited to Donald Trump's skybox at the Army-Navy game. So how is this going to come together with regard to the border and extending the Trump tax cuts? Could this be an all at once, as some are suggesting?
Right. So that's the question, whether or not Republicans try to pass this in one massive reconciliation bill. Then that would include renewing the Trump tax cuts that were, of course, signed into law in 2017, along with legislation for border security and energy policy as well. And Republicans in the House and Senate are a bit divided over how they want to do this. One faction would like to do everything in one bill. Another faction would like to separate it and focus on the border first and then get to the tax cuts later. But passing those tax cuts is going to be quite difficult. And so the Republicans who in the House who are having to navigate that are pushing to start that sooner.
Well, and when we consider the very different elements that a tax package could include, I wonder if the most problematic one of them for the majority is going to be the SALT cap. Donald Trump advisors, we reported yesterday, are considering doubling that to $20,000. At least one New York Republican, Nick Lalotta, said that he does not see that as satisfactory. And I just wonder, Erin, how many members of the Republican majority in high tax states like New York and California could actually have their jobs and therefore the majority at risk, depending on what happens with SALT specifically?
Yeah, I mean, that's a crucial issue for these Republicans in these high tax states, particularly folks like Nick Lalotta and Mike Lawler, who are in seats that could be competitive in 2026. Now, Lawler, of course, might run for governor in New York, in which case he would still have incentives to make sure that his agenda is passed on that. But it does look like that is going to be probably one of the most contentious battles in terms of the upcoming tax fight.
You know, I'm supposed to ask you about a government shutdown, I think, Erin, because it's a week from today that we have a funding deadline and there's no deal yet. Yet no one's running countdown clocks. Everybody seems to think that they'll find a way. It's just a question of whether we kick the can to February or March. And there's also a question about what we should do with disaster funding. Your thoughts on this, because this is holding things up a bit. The White House asked for almost $100 billion to help recover from the hurricanes that blew through largely red states. But we had Congressman Tim Burchett on the air just the other day who referred to FEMA as a garbage can that he said should be tipped upside down. The essence of this debate over disaster funding comes down to what?
Right. I think ultimately there is no political will on either side of the aisle to not pass this disaster relief legislation and ultimately keep the government open, because they know it will affect their constituents, even if in theory, going after government agencies like FEMA can be politically convenient in this moment. I think that there's little question that the government will be funded, and now that's going to get kicked down to the new year, of course. But there is not going to be a government shutdown, most likely.
Well, looks like we'll beat the clock again as we continue to look forward to the 119th Congress. Erin, there also, of course, is another strata of leadership, if you will, and that would be the committee chairs, which we learned a lot about this week as the steering committee selected them. And the Speaker, Mike Johnson, shared his thoughts about the caliber of those candidates who were running for the gavels earlier this week. Let's listen.
These are thoughtful elections. We have an embarrassment of riches, frankly. When you have multiple people running for these gavels, we discussed it yesterday in steering, any of these folks are doing an extraordinary job because they're all great colleagues and have great experience to the table and all that. So stay tuned on the final composition of conference chairs. We'll see how it all shakes out.
One of those competitive races, Erin, is one we care a lot about here on Bloomberg TV and radio. That's the Financial Services Committee, which had 4 contenders. And French Hill of Arkansas ultimately got the gavel. When we look at all of those incoming chairmen, and they all are men, other than the fact that there's no female representation, do you see other common denominators here? What does this tell you about the trajectory of the House?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I don't think there were any massive surprises in some of these fights, though I think what's one thread that ran through all of them was the fact that the Speaker didn't necessarily make his preferences clear in a lot of these battles, as previous majority leaders have done. And so that led to some more unexpected outcomes in terms of some committee fights. But overall, no huge surprises. There are a couple of high-profile committee chairs who are leaving Congress, one in particular, Cathy McMorris Rodgers, who currently chairs Energy and Commerce Committee. And of course, that has led to the fact that there are no Republican women who are chairing House committees in the new year. And so that is a dynamic that I think a lot of Republicans are talking about behind the scenes. But, you know, of course, from Johnson, you're not hearing about that as much as you might.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. It's the first time in almost a decade we have an all-boys club here at the top of each committee. What kind of a statement does that make for the conference?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because overall, actually, the number of Republican women in the House is shrinking. And that's after the number of Republican women has gone up in the House for the past couple of cycles, particularly after 2020, when there was a lot more emphasis on electing women in these competitive races and in open seats as well. And so we've kind of seen that trajectory turn around. Now, in the long run, we'll see if that continues to be the case. But I'll just point out in Republicans' House freshman class, there are only 2 women out of their class of 31 freshmen. So that goes to show how small that size is.